Now, the video we're going to talk about today is one I use as the perfect example of evergreen content. Because what makes Walk with History videos stand out is that we go to all of the locations that we talk about. And this location that we're going to talk about tonight, our very first president pulled off one of his most daring and infamous victories. So, Jen, why don't you tell us what we're talking about?
So we're going to talk about Washington Crossing, and I was super excited to be there. And I think it's evident in the video how just excited I am. We open up with kind of an interesting shot. We hadn't done that before, me across the Delaware River.
That was like one of my favorite things to try.
It was neat, but I'm talking real time, and you can't really see that because I'm so far away.
Yeah. So to set the stage a little bit, I drove across the Delaware.
You were on the Jersey side.
I was on the Jersey side.
New Jersey side, and I was on the Pennsylvania side.
Right.
And
so we opened the video
with him filming me across
I got my longest lens that I have. It's 250 millimeter, right? A little bit behind the scenes here because we talk about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I actually had to text you.
Yes.
I had to text you, okay, I'm set up. I had to get you in camera, and it was raining.
It was raining.
It started raining. So
like
and that lens is not an expensive lens, so it's not like super waterproof. So I'm like trying to cover it.
Sure.
And I'm trying to zoom all the way in. And I wasn't sure if it was going to work because the wireless mics that we have, they've got limited range. It's like 400 yards or something like that.
Yes.
And so I'm setting it all up. So I text you. I'm like, just start talking.
I know.
And luckily, when we got back and I recorded it, your audio was recording locally on your wireless mic.
Thank
goodness.
goodness.
So that's how I used that audio. I synced it up. So we got a little bit, but you get this across the Delaware. This is what they crossed in wintertime.
So that's kind of, and I'm very demonstrative because you can't see me. And I open with Thomas Paine, These Are the Times to Try Men's Souls, because he actually wrote that 2 days before the crossing of the Delaware.
Yeah.
So I open with that because I really wanted people to, if you don't, to sense the urgency of that battle and to get the daringness of it, how wide that river is. And then if you can think about it in the middle of winter with all the ice patches, just what a strategic move it was and how risky it was. But George Washington was really, he was trying to take that risk because he needed the payout because the morale was so low at that point. So he needed a decisive victory, and he thought this was going to give it to him, and it did. It really did. This was a moment in American history.
So set the stage for the more general history person who doesn't really know kind of where they're at in the war right now.
Sure. So it's 1776, been at war for about a year, declaring independence 1775. And Washington has been pushed back from D.C. all the way down into New Jersey, across the Delaware into Philadelphia. And the British have really just pushed them all the way back. And when they cross the Delaware, they are so fearful that they're going to come after them that they take all the boats.
That's right.
Off of the Jersey side. They take,
and we do a good job of kind of showing where they hide them.
Yes, and they hide them. There's a little river, a little island inlet,
there's a little inlet.
And he hides all the boats behind this little island inlet, so you can't even see them. But at that point, the British and the Hessians, so I say Haitians in the video, and Scott corrects me.
I do. So I obviously didn't know while we were recording.
Yes.
And
it's
so she started saying this, and I was like, I'm not sure that's right. And I was like looking up some YouTube videos. And so I actually look up how to pronounce, and then I type it in.
Yes.
And it's the Hessians.
Hessians. So King George
she kept saying
III
the Haitians.
had paid troops for hire. He paid Germany for troops. And so the Hessians are who is helping fight with the British. And that's who's pushing back. And once they pushed the Americans or the Continental Army across the Delaware, they kind of just, I wouldn't say give up, but they're like, it's November, December. Let's take a little break. It's cold.
It's winter time, and if you think about how battle was done at that time,
yes,
the very traditional let's line up and get
yes,
to a battlefield.
And these are paid soldiers.
In the winter time, they're not really going to do that.
Yeah,
it's like nobody wants to do this in the wintertime. Yeah. Everybody's cold and miserable.
That's why there were like encampments for the winter Valley Forge, and
they would dig in and they would settle down.
They would settle down. Yeah. So they don't come after the Continental Army when they go across to the Pennsylvania side. They don't come after them. And that's where George Washington kind of builds up his idea over there of what to do, because they need to build morale. But one of the neat things we discovered while doing this video is the legend of Sleepy Hollow. The Headless Horseman is a Hessian.
Yeah, was it from this?
It's from another battle up north in New York.
Yeah,
but he's a Hessian.
That's right.
Soldier.
I forgot about that. So we actually put a clip.
Yeah, from the American Revolution, and so that's the term. If you watch the whole video, comment Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, that's right.
And but I never realized that's who the Headless Horseman was. I didn't realize he was. He's not even Continental Army.
Wait, he's German.
He's German. No wonder he's mad.
Yeah.
Like he came over.
He's mad. So he's riding around trying to fight his head.
Yeah, he's like, I came here. I'm getting paid. I just want to go home.
Yeah, it's October. Right? Give me. I want to go home and do Oktoberfest and give me my head back.
Yeah, so that's a little history for you. But so by Christmas Day, they're over here on the Pennsylvania side, 1776, and George Washington thinks we need a strong victory, and he comes up with this idea to cross on Christmas Day, and they cross, they start crossing at 4 p.m. on Christmas Day, and they don't get everyone across till 3 a.m. on the December 26th.
And one of the cool things that we got to do, we didn't just go to the spot, right? There's a whole park and there's a museum and there's these tours.
Yeah, it's a national historic site.
And so we actually go to some of the sheds and we show video of it, of the kinds of boats that they actually cross the river in.
So the National Historic Site has been there since the 60s, and they have they recreate this crossing every Christmas.
Yeah.
So if you want to go see it, you can go see.
Do they do it on Christmas?
They do it on Christmas Day.
Oh, really?
And so they have recreations of the Durham boats, but they're 20% smaller, but they are what they would look like. And that's kind of where you can see what the boat looks like. I show you what one of the cannons looked like, because they transported 18 cannons across the river. And smaller cannons, lighter cannons. And so I show you kind of what they would fire. I show you the grape shot. So grape shot is about the size of a grape, metal that they would bind together and put in the cannon. And so when it fired out in all directions.
And it's interesting too, again, to kind of to stop and pause when you look at this grape shot and you're like, okay, they're doing this to cause more damage.
Yeah.
Right. It's like there's some movies. Well, there was a John Travolta movie. I forget what it was, but they have ball bearings, right? It's like shooting all these ball bearings out. That's essentially what it is.
But ball bearings are smaller.
Ball bearings are smaller. Grape shot's a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And so they're designing these things.
It would kill you.
When you see this and you're like, man, they shot this out of a cannon to basically kill more, like the brutal kind of warfare.
Even if it took out, hit your arm or hit your leg.
That was one of those weird things. I was like, oh my gosh, like they're shooting this out of, like that'll kill anybody or anything that it hits. That's not going to like hit you and not cause damage.
Yes. And of course they use cannonballs as well, but the grape shot actually got more damage.
Yeah.
But what else we show you in that inn, in that the Durham boat inn or shed where they house them, is the actual flag that they used.
Yeah.
So Emmanuel Lutz's picture, which we talk about in the beginning of the video,
the famous
picture that everyone would know. It's George Washington high in the center of the picture. They're crossing. You see the ice patches. You see the other men sitting lower. And actually the person holding the American flag is James Monroe, the 5th president. Now, James Monroe was part of the crossing, and we'll talk more about him, but he was not on the boat with George Washington, although they did know each other. But that flag is not made by Betsy Ross until 1777. So in 1776, what they have with them, the Continental Army flag, looks like a Union Jack.
Yep.
a British flag with red and white stripes. So just like the American flag, and in the corner is the Union Jack, and that's the flag they would have.
Yeah. So that's the one difference, right? If you see that famous Washington crossing, in fact, that's our YouTube channel header, right? It's kind of a ghost image of that.
Yes.
With the flag. That's the incorrect flag.
It's not. So that painting was done in 1851, and Lutz, who's French, he was so proud to the French to be a part of this American Revolution. Yeah. There's 13 men on the boat for the 13 colonies. And no, there's no seats on a Durham boat. So that's what we're showing you. These boats were really used for commerce to get goods and cattle and iron ore across the water. So there's no seats, enough for comfort.
Right.
And so in that painting, people are sitting. There's nowhere to sit. Everyone's standing in a boat, in those kind of boats.
And also one of the things that was really cool too is they actually, so in the little museum part that you can walk through in the visitor center area is a picture of a more modern day picture of the Delaware in wintertime.
Yes.
Right. And they say like, this is probably what it looked like. And it's basically all just ice and like a little mini icebergs and snow.
So it's ice patches because it's a river. So it's not going to be solid ice like a lake. It's ice patches where the ice is formed, but the river is still flowing. So that part of the painting is correct, where they're pushing the ice patches out of the way, and that is exactly what it looks like.
And it was just cool to see like an actual, like someone took a photograph probably 5-10 years ago of the Delaware when it probably looked similar. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I could practically walk across that. Maybe not quite to that degree. Yeah. But it was cold, right? They had to be careful because they could damage boats, and it took, like you said, it took them all night.
Yeah. So they started, like I said, at 4 p.m. They get across at 3 a.m. They've gotten 2,400 men across, 18 cannons across, 50 horses across. It's 3 a.m. and they haven't even started the march to Trenton yet.
Yeah.
So.
And how far is Trenton from there?
It's 11 miles. It takes them 8 hours. So from 3 a.m. to 11 a.m., they march the 11 miles. They split and they engulf Trenton. Now, this is the day after Christmas. The guys have been partying all night. They've kind of let their guard down. It's a misty morning. It's 11 a.m. This really works in Washington's favor because as they come around and they get their sharpshooters out, they're so close in vicinity. Even though there's only 2,400 men, the Hessians think that they're surrounded.
Yeah.
They think they're surrounded from all angles, which they're not. But George Washington has strategically put sharpshooters in every direction, and they're not ready. They're drunk. They're hungover.
Yeah, it's Christmas night. Christmas.
Yeah. Exactly. So it really isn't much of a fight. Yeah. They basically
even like the lead general on the Hessian side. I think
they just surrender.
Even he was just like, yeah, I'm not doing this. Like, nope.
Yeah. So they captured 900 people.
Yeah.
So then they take them and they get 29 officers, which they will hold. And we talk a little bit about the McConkey Ferry Inn, and I'll talk more about that after this. They hold the officers in the McConkey Ferry Inn in the attic to trade.
Oh, that's right. We filmed right there.
Yeah, they traded. This is just protocol with fighting in that time. You trade officers that you have captured back. But they take the 900 captured men and they parade them through Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And it builds such morale. And it did what George Washington wanted it to do. It showed the people, we are winning. We're being successful. Thank you for your money. Thank you for your taxes. Thank you for supporting us. We are endeavoring to win this war of independence.
It's so interesting to me. Right. So we've mentioned it briefly. I'm in the military and I've gone through some military school and stuff like that. And they talk about different levels of understanding. Right. And they have the tactical level. Washington put the snipers and the sharpshooters in the right spot around the Hessians. They talk about the operational level, which is the next level up, which is getting people across the Delaware. Be like, now's the time to strike. We can do this. We can go take them. This is going to build our morale. And there's the strategic level, which is the highest level of kind of military planning, which is the morale, parading them. He made the decision to parade them through the streets because he knew strategically it would just really like bring all the American side together.
He needed this victory. And like when I opened up with that Thomas Paine quote, it's because this was a moment of history. People's enlistments were running out. Washington was going to lose all these men. He knew he had to do something fast. No one's going to re-enlist. And this was such a blow to the British Army that Cornwallis was supposed to go back to London for Christmas. And he's like on the ship going back, and he turns around because he realizes this is a real fight.
Yeah. He's like, oh yeah, I can't just turn my back on this Washington guy.
Yeah. So it really is, for George Washington, the strategy behind this was really great. And so when we talk about the McConkey Ferry Inn and we go there,
Yep.
George Washington has Christmas dinner with his officers there before they start the crossing. So they start the crossing at 4 p.m. So he's eating relatively early with his men. And this is like, he's going over the plan one last time, and this is what we're going to do. And there's the marker where it says Washington crossed here. And I tell you that the marker's been moved a couple times because no one knows exactly where George Washington crossed. But the men, 2,400 men, are crossing from all different locations.
Yeah, and if you ever go there, and you can see it in our video, right? 2,400 people crossed the river. So obviously there wasn't one spot. They were all along the riverbank there.
Must have been a couple, many of these boats back and forth. And the way a ferry works, I had talked about how a ferry works with the rope going around a tree on the Pennsylvania side and a rope going around the tree on the New Jersey side. And you basically pull the ferry back and forth. So they're using that as well. Not just these boats, but they're using the ferry line. Now there's a bridge there.
Yes.
And you drove across it. Yep. And that bridge was put up in 1904. But it's a very cool way to be able to go from one side to the other because both sides are part of the National Historic Sites.
Yes.
And so you want to make sure you go to both sides and see what it was like, before and after.
Yeah, and most everything is on the Pennsylvania side.
Mm-hmm. The museum is.
Yep.
And then on the other side, you can walk the road where the army marched, but it's more the historic buildings are on the Jersey side.
Yeah, yeah. It was just so interesting there, and this is why I talk about, right? I said in the intro, this is the true evergreen content because Washington Crossing, that will always be that. It'll always be that spot. Right, it'll always be there. And so to me, that was so cool. Like even where you said he was having dinner with his men, I don't know if the structure of the building or that was obviously probably not original.
No,
but
I
that
think it was rebuilt.
spot right there was where they did it. Like George Washington, right? President number one.
Christmas Day,
number one on that list, right? Was sitting right there with his officers
saying,
a couple hundred
here
years
we go.
ago. He's like, okay, guys, this is what we got to do.
This is what we got to do.
That was kind of neat, and that's what they kind of really do a good job of driving home while you're there.
Yes, just how strategic he was. So I talk a little bit about Monroe. Monroe's the 5th president. He's going to school at William and Mary, and he's in school for a year and a half when he decides to join the Continental Army, and that's when he meets George Washington. He meets Thomas Jefferson, and he fights in this battle, and he actually almost dies, and he severs an artery in the Battle of Trenton.
Oh, I forgot that.
And Washington is so impressed by that he advances his rank, gives him his own brigade, and it really is a lot for Monroe. It really does build up his esteem. So it's neat that Monroe is in that painting because of who he is after the fact, but at the time he is still also making a name for himself.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I think I forgot that. Again, this one just kind of it's hard for me to put into words how neat it was, like just truly being there. Some of these locations that we go to, we're like, I'm there and I'm in a museum or I'm at like an old fort. It's like, okay, this is kind of cool, but everything's built up around it and stuff like that. But this one was just one of those ones because like here's this river, right?
Yeah.
The river probably hasn't really changed that much in a couple hundred years. Like it's still the same river, right? Maybe the riverbank has changed a little bit, but not that much.
Yeah, and the land doesn't look much different. I think they had a cannon there too, like Lafayette's cannon.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they say they fired it again when Lafayette came to visit because he did his tour after he came back to America. And that was neat to see his cannon as well. So if you ever get a chance to get out there, it's there for you. And if you can see the recreation, they'll actually use the authentic flag.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And we showed pictures of what the modern day crossing looks like. And it's not always snowy, right? Even though it's on Christmas Day. So Washington crossing the Delaware will forever be memorialized, not just in the world famous painting by Emanuel Lutz with Washington striking a pose, but because George Washington was the kind of leader that pushed for the unexpected and was not afraid to be at the forefront of the uncertain. So thank you to listening to the Talk with History podcast, and please reach out to us at our website, talkwithhistory.com. But more importantly, if you know someone else that might enjoy this podcast, please share this with them, especially if you think they would enjoy today's episode or it would interest a friend. Shoot them a text and tell them to look up the Talk with History podcast, because we rely on you, our community, to grow, and we appreciate you all every day. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.